Hey everybody, welcome back. So, we've had hype in the game for a full MLC now. And I think a full MLC is more than enough time to have played through the hype mechanic and through the hype update and come up with some opinions and things to talk about regarding hype. And I've had a bunch of conversations with a bunch of people about hype. We've talked about it at length in the official Discord. I've talked to some people behind the scenes. Not behind the scenes, but like individually and one-on-one and chatted with people in my faction and other factions about it. And I've talked about it enough that I think that I've got a good handle on it. And I wanted to make a video about why hype feels bad. Because hype does feel bad to many of us right now. I'm sure there's some in the community where there are no feelings of badness whatsoever with hype, but I don't think that's the majority. I also don't think that the majority of the community absolutely hates the hype update. I know there's some. And, those opinions are valid too. But I don't think that in a large scale, everybody just thinks that the whole thing is trash. What it is that as it sits right now, it doesn't feel great. And I'm going to try to take, hopefully 30 minutes or so and talk about why it feels bad. And try to put a lot of words to it and hopefully a different kind of viewpoint to it, so that we can all kind of like look at it a little bit more granular and through a magnifying glass, and understand exactly why it feels bad. So I'm going to set a couple of ground rules for this video. I'm not going to sit here and talk about how I hate hype. That is not a productive conversation, and is a waste of everybody's time. Nobody wants to watch a video about somebody just spending 30 minutes bashing everything without offering any solutions. I'm not going to criticize anything without giving a solution, actually. I think that is an important part of discourse is you can be critical of things, but if you don't offer solutions or different ways of looking at it, being critical is just hating for the sake of hating, and it is a very it turns then into an exercise of making yourself feel better by ripping something apart, but unless you're trying to create something around behind it, it's ultimately a fruitless task. And those two ground rules are going to kind of define this particular video. As always, I want to invite discussion, and I want to invite comments, but I ask you that your comments also follow these ground rules. No blanket statements of I just hate hype, no blanket statements of I love everything about hype, and then no criticisms without actual solutions to the problems that I'm going to outline here. And before we get too much further into that, I do want to kind of touch on something else. If hype has absolutely stolen all of the fun out of this game for you, it's okay to quit. Don't sit and do something over and over again that gives you no joy. Life is too short. There are many other games out there that you can play. Don't get caught in a sunk cost fallacy of how much your roster means to you, how much your roster you've invested in. If the game is affecting you negatively, go ahead and cut ties. It's okay. All right. So let's talk about it. In the background, I'll probably play through the hype step tour, but I do want to just go ahead and go through my 5 points. And the first point is the only complaint I've got that doesn't really have a solution. The rollout was very poor for hype. It was just sprung on us. We did not get a very clear tutorial. There was no nothing has been clearly defined when it comes to hype. It's just, it dropped. Okay. And that feels bad, all the way around. It doesn't feel, it didn't feel like a really well put together update because of the lack of information. There was a couple of blogs, there was a couple of AMAs. Merrick's went on stream and talked about it. Gerson did a video about it. And the problem is none of that was enough to really explain what is happening with hype. And to a certain extent, we still don't quite know what is happening with hype. All right. Awareness is a binary mechanic. If you have more awareness, you go first. That's fine. We've all kind of gotten used to that now. We understand what that means. Damage and defense is still information that is out there in the game that we can't quite understand because there's no way of really understanding it. Okay. Over to the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the hype levels and bonus that I was able to do by myself. You'll notice there's no hype 4 on there because I don't have any hype 4. So I was really only able to test levels 1, 2, and 3 with class advantage on offense only. There's no real good way to really test the defense in the game still, unless you go into Showdown, which adds a lot of variables due to buffs for both offense and defense, or Feud, and that also offers a lot of variables on both offense and defense through buffs and the way cards are put together. So there's no real way of understanding exactly how defense works in regards to hype. But I have gotten pretty dialed in on damage. I have a video about it. I'll link it in the description about hype damage. However, eyeballing it, defense works the exact same way of hype. All right. Kick out has also been solved, and let's talk about it real quick. So if we go to the hype UI here, this is binary. If you have higher awareness, you go first. Aggression and toughness, nobody knows what these numbers mean. I can't suss it out. I know that aggression is a comparative stat to toughness with your opponent. So your aggression gets compared to your opponent's toughness, and that's where the hype levels and bonus show up. Same thing with toughness being compared to your opponent's aggression. That's where these hype levels and bonus gets appointed. Kickout is easy to figure out. It is just a percentage. So my Hip Hop Cena has 40% kickout bonus after all applicable buffs and nerfs are accounted for in the kickout itself. Okay. That's fine. Once I figured out and did the math on that, that makes a ton of sense. Awareness, when it's a 1v1 situation, makes a lot of sense to me. It's binary. But it got really weird on SD when they didn't tell us that, hey, your entire team's hype level, including class advantage, will affect who goes first. Fortunately, that's already been fixed in a UI update. But there's still a lot of questions around this. And really the only fix, you can't fix the rollout. The rollout is the rollout. But somebody needs to take some time at Scopely and either create a tutorial on how the comparison works, how the math works, how the damage against your opponent works here. I think that it's the last line of buffs. So after everything is calculated, it gets filtered through either the offense or defensive side of hype. But I can't, nobody's told me anything about that. And as far as I know, nobody's told anybody anything about that. So either a tutorial about how hype works needs to be released by Scopely, or they need to get the official CCs up to speed so that they can do their own content, whether it be a stream or a video, to give them the ability to do it, right? I don't even really want to speak for the official CCs in this particular magnitude, but I bet if they understood exactly how it all worked, a handful of them would be more than willing to create a tutorial about this system, okay? So that's the only fix, is like, how does this actually work? And that hasn't been explained yet, and it continues to be a pain point to this day. What people don't understand, they will make mean anything. And we're currently in that section of hype. It is very frustrating. And having a frustrating system feels bad. Okay. While I'm on the screen, I'm going to talk about the second pain point that I personally have with hype, and that's the acquisition model doesn't feel good. Okay? There is no ability to choose who you hype up outside of this wildcard gym, and these things are super protected right now. This is random. You get them from loot pulls. This is also kind of random. You get them from loot pulls, but you can spend them here. But you can see that this is a massive discrepancy. I've got an entire month. The only wild card I have spent in the game is on John Cena. And I've had to use these wild cards to do it. It's 10 for the first level, 30 for the second level. That means I have earned a grand total of 49 wild card hype gems. I have not purchased any hype. I have not done anything other than the speed tours, and I haven't done anything other than the step tours now that they're around. This is a bad acquisition model for a bunch of different reasons. Okay? I want to talk about this right here. This was in the blog. How grindy is hype? Casuals rejoice. Early tiers unlock at tier 5. That doesn't answer the question of how grindy is hype. Maxing everyone, that takes heart, but you control who gets the juice. That is not true. Not really at this point. Is hype pay to win? Does spending dominate? No chance. That's kind of true still. Kind of. You pay to accelerate, but you don't pay to win. Okay? And the reason you don't pay to win is through the acquisition model and the loot. Any superstar, any talent can get hyped. You don't need 6-star gold to start wrecking. Yeah, that's true. Class advantage is smart roster choices. Smart roster choices equal big win for grinders. This isn't true as it sits. A new daily mode will drop mats regularly, keeping free-to-play players in the race. That's also not entirely true. Spenders get there faster, but they don't own the ring. Sure. This is pay to accelerate, not pay to win. But this is all very misleading. It's just misleading. And it's misleading because of this right here. All right? This loot is nothing but this stuff right here, your wild cards, which also has differing amounts of the wild cards you can get. You might be able to get 10 Showboat. You might be able to get 5 Showboat. You may only get 2 Showboat. This is not okay. All right? And then you come down here, and it's shards. I'm sorry, frags. It's just frags of stuff. They're not even really sure what the entire table is here. I'm not entirely sure of drop rate within each one of these tiers. And I know this has been a common complaint for a very long time. But yeah, it's not, it doesn't feel good. Okay. Because this reduces your choice of who you upgrade on your roster. For instance, the only choosing that I've done is my hip hop Cena. Everything else here has been random. Did I get lucky with Naomi, Asuka? Sure. Braun? Absolutely. Charlotte? 100%. This Brett? I didn't get lucky there. Or did I get lucky there? Right? Let's keep on going. Here's still some that I got a little lucky with. This is the one they gave to everybody. Let's keep going. Bull Nakano, I got 3 hype levels into Bull Nakano. It's not a decision I would have made. I have 3 hype levels into Striker, Karrion Kross. Not a decision I would have made. 3 hype levels into King Woods. Not a decision I would have made. Let's do this. Let's look at my unused hype points that are card specific. All right. Big John Studd. Reworked Lex. Streak Goldberg. Eric Bischoff. Bundy. Mutant Seth Rollins. Afa. Brutus. Bruno Sammartino? An IOW character? Powerhouse Iron Sheik? The first HBK in the game? Shane O'Mac? Nobody asked for this. Here's my hype tier 3 striker Devon. I can bring NWO 6 to hype level 1. I'm beating a dead horse at this point in time, but this isn't customization. I'm not choosing to do any of this. This was all randomly generated and given to me. I have no control over this process. None. I don't have any control. I got lucky on a couple of them. I got super unlucky on a bunch of them. And it's stuff that I'm never going to use. Okay? Now, I understand that there is a there's a small window here where I can use some of these cards. All right? I get that. Let's go over here and let's go back to my King Woods. Hype level 3. If I wanted to, I'm sure I could figure out a way to make my King Woods hit, because he's hype level 3. I could take my 66.4% offensive advantage and the fact that he has 66.4% added defense across all layers of damage, and I could go stomp with it. That's fine. But the closer you get in parity with hype levels, the less these bonuses matter. So a hype level 3 versus a 0 is at 66.4%. You're going to dominate. But if that hype level 3 is facing a hype level 1, now you're only at a 37.99% difference. If that hype level 3 is facing a hype level 2, now you're only at a 19.73% difference. It's diminishing returns the more hype is going to be put into the game economy and into the game itself, to a point where my Xavier Woods, King Woods, at hype level 3 will go back to being the same exact card against that it always has been against other hype level 3s, and then gets disadvantage against hype level 4s. Bringing your cards up that have high hype level that was given to you by RNG is not giving you control over your roster, and it is not allowing you to build who you want to build. It is a short-term fix that over the long term is just going to waste your own resources for a very small time gain. It's not a solution, and it probably isn't exactly how hype was intended to work off the jump, in my opinion. Now, in future updates, if they alter how this works and they alter how this works and this becomes a little bit more flexible, sure. I'll take back everything I said about this. But as of right now, it feels bad. So how do we fix this? I actually think it's a very easy solution. These right here, these character specific microphone hype fragments that you get, make them grindable, right? Oops, wrong one. Whoop, wrong one. Right here. How grindy is hype? You can grind it. Just make it grindable. That's it. Just make it grindable. And what do I mean by that? Give us a grinding game mode where you can earn these. And I'm not talking this. I'm not talking grinding loot coins for a random amount. Give us a game mode where whoever you bring in, the results are, instead of this stuff, make it card or class specific. Make it a tour. You don't have to have it be one of these stip tours. Make it a tour where every time you win, you get one. All right. Or put it in these little boxes here. Put it in the gold box. Whoever you used, you have a chance of pulling from the gold box, or probably all of them would feel better, one individual hype frag for the card that you used. Is that a possible thing to program into the game? I'm sure it is. Or make it a wild card fragment. Make the tour 6 nodes, and each node is a specific class. It's locked. It has no gender. You can use men or women if you want to, and make hype frags available, the wildcard hype frags, to drop from this. Give you a way to earn enough to develop who you want to develop would go a long way to fix the actual problem. So you get to choose who has hype on your roster. And if you want to, you can sit and grind hype 3 to your heart's content. You can grind hype 4 to your heart's content. Make the acquisition very difficult so that people don't run away with it. But make it something that's not RNG. All right, because RNG feels bad in this particular situation. Let's look at the previous way to evolve somebody. Let me find, sure, my hype level 3 Bronson Reed. What was the previous way to enhance somebody? You had to have shards, grindable, to an extent, and tokens, grindable, to an extent. They had them on prize walls. You can go and target these tokens to bring somebody up. I remember, well, every time there was a rarity change, 6-star gold, 5-star or 6-star gold, 6-star silver, 6-star bronze. Not having this top token was the lock, but you could get it, and eventually you get to a point where you have an excess of these things. I could bring up any powerhouse I wanted to gold 3 times over right now. It's still gated. If you run out of shards, you're kind of toast. If you run out of tokens, you're kind of toast. But you can go out and figure out a way to do it. You can start looking at prize walls. There's ways around the problem. You just have to go figure out how to get around that particular problem. Make hype the same way. Instead of right now, it's an RNG based off of some loot where we don't even really know how this works. Okay. That's the way to fix it. If you could figure out a way to grind your own hype automatically, at least the acquisition of hype starts to feel a lot better. Plus, you probably get more screen time engagement doing it that way too. All right. Let's talk about the third thing that doesn't feel great. And that is, in my opinion, class advantage. Outlevel your opponent and run the match. Sure, Not a problem. Evenly matched, class advantage becomes your secret weapon. No, it doesn't. At a class disadvantage, your rival gets the boost. Awareness lets them go first. Punching up, exploit your class advantage boost to steal the spotlight. That does not happen. Right now, as it works, class advantage does nothing to help the player. Nothing. Nothing at all. Okay? Where's the class advantage wheel? Is there an easy way for me to pull it up? I don't think so. Or at least I can't think about it off the top of my head like this. Where would I find the class advantage wheel? Hold, please. Here's the class advantage wheel. It used to be 25% gem damage and then hype only, hype stats boost. We know that this is a arbitrary amount. At level 1 and level 2, it's like 50%. Level 3, it gets a little bit weirder. Level 4, I don't know. I haven't been able to put my eyes on it. Okay. And it does affect a bunch of the stats. It affects literally all of them. It affects your kick out, your awareness, your offense, and your defense. Between hype level 1 and hype level 2, it's 50% for all of them. Great. What does that actually affect? Nothing. Okay. If I'm hype level 1 and this scene is a hype level 2, class advantage does nothing except for reduce the amount of buffs that this guy gets. He still goes first. He still will have a buff over me. It just won't be quite as large. All right. It's a class advantage if we're both 1 and he has the class advantage, he goes first. He will have the stat buffs over me. Now, the reason I say that it doesn't help the player is that it's not strong enough to help the player. We came from a meta of turn 1 victories. So if you went first, you were probably going to win turn 1. That was the goal, was to win turn 1. In fact, the goal was to win turn 1 as fast as possible with the least amount of moves. 2-click cards became the best. 2-click cards with short movement animation became the creme de la creme in the old meta. I just realized I had a picture over everything I was talking about here, but that's okay. Hopefully you can follow along with me. So we came from a turn 1 meta. Getting a damage boost or a defense boost doesn't mean anything when you're taking a turn 1 card against the card you're going to turn 1 anyway. So it doesn't matter. In fact, when it comes to the hype system, the damage and defense doesn't really matter anyway because we are so used to turn 1 victories. All right? So the stat boost is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. And really, the closer that we get to parity and hype, once everybody has hype level 4, the stat boost again becomes irrelevant. Because everybody's going to be at the same, everybody's going to be on the same page. Ties always go to the player, so that class advantage will never allow you to go first. You'll never be able to punch up enough if you don't go first to completely eliminate all of the stat buffs that hype gives your opponent. And it's ultimately useless other than who goes, making sure that your opponent doesn't go first. There's an easy fix for this, though. There's a way to turn this all the way around and make class advantage actually useful. And the fix is class advantage should be 1 full hype level over whoever the opponent is. And it should work both ways. Okay? So if my Cena has class advantage over this Cena, but I'm hype level 1 and this Cena is hype level 2, it should match the hype level 2. It should just be even. I go first and everything is dead even because it would be like a hype level 2 fighting a hype level 2. So no buffs, no nerfs, speed is equal. If speed is equal, tie goes to the player. I go first. That's how class advantage could actually help the player. And it's the only way I can think of actually making class advantage actually help the player. Otherwise, class advantage hurts the player. But if class advantage is a full hype level, then there's something to strive for. Then the class advantage wheel makes sense. Then there's something to do and a little bit of strategy to be had. Goes back to roster building. You want to make sure you have at least a hype level 1 or hype level 2 in all classes. It would make feud experiences a lot better. It would specifically make feud experiences a lot better because in the 20-hour feuds, you pretty much want to have one of each class anyway in your feud lineup. If you know that you can take your class advantage against an overhyped opponent, and if they're only one level hype above you, you can then use your class advantage to level the playing field, fine. Not a problem. Now we're getting into a little bit of just bare minimum strategy, right? Right now, we're paying attention to class advantage to make sure our opponent doesn't get class advantage. And that's the only relevant thing that class advantage is bringing to the table. If you give everybody a full hype level class advantage bonus, now you start to see a little bit of parity happening and something that doesn't quite feel as bad. All right. The fourth thing is the kickout boost. This is kind of a minor thing, but it does also feel bad. And the kickout boost, quite frankly, is just overtuned. That's all there is to it, is the kickout boost is overtuned. All right. This 40% right here comes after everything else. I have a video on kickout damage. Where your HP bar is where the old school kickout buff came from. You know, if you're 70% or above, you get an 80, you take your damage and multiply by 80. If you're from 5 to 7, you take out that kickout damage and multiply by 40. If you're from 2 to 5, or 2 to 4, sorry, your kickout damage gets multiplied by 15. And if you're at 10% or less, your kickout damage is exactly what it should be. There is no buff. What you're doing is you're taking all of those buffs and then you're adding 40% on top of that. So if you're at 70% or higher and you've got a hype level 2 card, I'm taking that kickout damage that's already multiplied by 80 and then I'm multiplying all of that by 40% and I'm adding that to it. That's huge. Boy, that's such a big number. Making it so that one swipe will get you out of everything. There's also currently a bug in the kickout system where hype damage doesn't go into the pin. So if I hit you for, I don't know, 100 million, I'm at hype level 2. So I get the 37.99% increased damage. Well, that damage doesn't go into the pin. That 37.99% additive doesn't go into the pin. The pin kickout is whatever it was before that 37.99%. So the opponent has less to kick out of, and if they have hype themselves, they get the hype kick out, meaning they have an easier time to kick out. So not only do they get hype buff and kick out, but they have an easier time to kick out. That doesn't feel great, right? There's 2 real simple fixes for it. You reduce the kickout buff by 50% all across the board. Hype level 2, kickout 40, nah, make it 20. Hype level 3, which is 60 over here, nah, make it 30. Hype level 1, which is, I believe, 20, make it 10. Cut it by 50% across the board, and then make sure that you're putting hype damage into the pin itself. All right, so it is a true amount of damage that you have to kick out of, not the damage before the hype buff, where the hype buff actually takes away from the HP bar, but you don't actually have to account for that damage in the pin itself. That would solve the kick out boost problem and would feel a lot better all across everything. Okay, that's a really easy fix. It's a really easy fix. The fifth thing that feels bad is when hype was talked about, and I didn't grab a screenshot of this from the blog. When hype was talked about, they started talking almost instantly about situations where you should be rewarded for losing. I got to be really honest. This is the thing that makes me feel the worst about hype, is that there are scenarios where you're going to get rewarded for losing. And I hate that. That doesn't feel good. There's no sense of accomplishment there. There's no sense of anything there. Right now, it's only in one game mode. It's in feuds. And if your hyped cards get beat by the opponent, you earn some points. Whereas if you beat your opponent's hyped cards, they earn some points. So they could just load up their feud lineup with hype level 1s. And every time I beat one of them, they get points for it. That feels terrible. I hate it. It grinds my gears, and it's probably irrational. It helps speed up the feud experience. It helps speed everything up as far as milestone acquisition and all of that. But it doesn't feel great. So just flip it. That's the easy fix there. Give me extra points for defeating hype levels. If my opponent's running 6 level 1 hypes in feud, give me a 20% boost for every hype level 1 that I beat. Give me a 30% boost for every hype level 2 that I beat. Give me a 40% boost for every hype level 3 that I beat, regardless of my own hype levels. Give me points for winning stuff. Don't give the opponents points for me winning stuff. The concept of it grinds my gears. Give me points for beating stuff. Give me points for my accomplishments. If you want to reward the player for losing, create a tower style attack mode in the game. You fight a hype level 1, great. You get some rewards. Go on to the next rung of the tower. Hype level 1 with class advantage. Hype level 2. Hype level 2 with class advantage. Keep on going through those until you lose. And then when you lose, you get a consolation prize. You tried. You don't have anybody on your roster big enough to handle it. That's all right. Thank you for your time. Here's your stuff. All right. That's the only way that losing makes sense. Every other way doesn't make sense. I don't want to know that when I go through and I beat my opponent who is hyped to the gills and I do everything that I can to win, and I actually do, I have given my opponent's points. That feels bad. Make it so I get points for defeating hype. Those are my main 5 things, okay? Common things that I see that I actually don't have a problem with is I don't mind the disparity in buffs from hype level 1 to hype level 4 or hype level 5. That's fine. That's not a problem. I get that it's going to be hard. Sometimes that's just the way it's going to be. All right? I don't mind that I don't always go first. The going first is a privilege thing. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. I'm okay if I don't go first, if you give me the appropriate tools to handle that, which they have recently. Okay? I don't mind that the whales get an accelerated hype experience. That's the way it's always been. Spenders will accelerate their roster improvements. They've done it through every rarity scale that I have played through so far, and I don't anticipate that changing. All right? But I want more information about hype. That's what I want. I want a tutorial. I want a way to actually take my roster into my own hands and figure out how to hype the people that I want to hype up. Okay? I want card EXP. I want class advantage to mean something. If class advantage is going to be important going forward, I want it to actually mean something. I don't want it to always help the opponent. I want kickouts to be even. I want them to still be buffed if there's hype, but I want it to be a little bit less overtuned, and I still want to be rewarded for hitting an overhyped opponent with a big old Hulk smash. Right? I don't want the feeling of, oh my goodness, I did 200 million and they still kicked out. That doesn't feel great. Just tune it up a little bit better. And then if you're going to reward me for losing against the environment in a specific manner. Otherwise, I want to be rewarded for doing extraordinary things in the game. All right. Those are all simple fixes. They're very easy things. And that would change for me, it would change hype feeling bad, because right now hype feels skewed towards my opponent and not a benefit for me. And if I could figure out a way to feel like hype benefits me, it feels better. And these 5 things, I think, are ways to do that. All right. Hype as a concept isn't bad. If you think about it, right? Let's compare it to historical tradition. Historical tradition. Good job. Great phrase. Every rarity came with a stat boost. That's what aggression and toughness is. That's fine. All right. That feels like 7-star bronze is hitting a lot harder or not, or tanking more damage. That's okay. All right. Going first doesn't matter to me. Being able to isolate these and choose these on an individual spot where I could just ratchet up my toughness, that is going to be cool. I hope they do that. I hope that's the idea going forward, is you can put stuff into each one of these little nodes. That's what I want. I want to be able to either make a super fast character, or I want to be able to make a super tough character and just forget about awareness, or somebody who hits so hard that you don't know what to deal with, where you could sub somebody out. Like, these are things that I want. And I think hype has laid the groundwork for that type of stuff. All right. Hype is not a bad concept, in my opinion. Hype could be very good for the game and could make the game a whole lot more interesting for me. All right. And they've already started doing some things that have helped. They refreshed 6 cards that people rarely used, outside of maybe 1 or 2, and gave them updated training abilities where it's MP down coaches, up to 4 MP down. That's fantastic. They gave them away. And since they are color specific, there's very little that you're going to see that on defense, but they're going to be able to be used on offense all over the place. I used them the most recent feud. It absolutely helped me out. I didn't run into any of those on defense because it's too narrow. Say you got somebody that's running purple MP4 down and red MP4 down, fine. I'm going to take my tri-yellow card against you, and none of those MP down trainers are actually going to help you. Useless as defense, amazing on offense. They've already changed how you score in feud, right? They went from 2 points per war score to 3 points per war score. It's a 50% increase. A lot of people scored a lot of war score points this time around, even though the feud matches are longer. That's fine. That's great. That is a great change. All right. They've already adapted the first turn UI and the class advantage UI. And it's really easy to see and look at and go, oh, cool, this is what's happening. All right. They are continuing with the speed tours for the hype loop. All right. If hype loot is the way that we're going to get all of this going forward, and they don't make it grindable, at least they're still giving it away for free. They need to figure out better ways to do it and more ways of doing it, but at least it's still there. Hype has the potential to be a fantastic system and a lot of fun. And I think it has the potential to make your roster absolutely malleable. So you can choose who you want to use and who to be an absolute one-shot killer. It's not there right now, but I see it. I see the vision, and I think it could be good. So those are 5 things I think the game could do to make hype better. I've probably gone over. I wanted to make this about 30 minutes. It is 45. Fantastic. Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Remember to follow the guidelines. No blanket statements. No criticism without solution. As always, I hope you've learned something today. I hope you've been entertained by something today. Or I hope you've just liked the sound of my voice. If you had, do me a favor, click like, click subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.